पाएं 10 लाख तक का इंस्टेंट लोन 10 मिनट में। इंटरेस्ट शुरू होती है सिर्फ 10% पर एनम से। डाउनलोड करें मनी व्यू ऐप आज ही।
लाइफ कटे मजे से जब क्रू का म्यूजिक चले स्पॉटिफाई पे।
पहुंच जाओ ताकि लोगों को दिखा दूं मेरे में क्या है चीज जो हम
team which we thought might actually direct qualify to the finals itself, and their struggle has been just immeasurable.
Yeah, when it matters the most, the boys, they tend to collapse, and that's what exactly happens. The pressure is too much, and they're not able to live up to that pressure. They're not able to live up to the legacy that they've built so far. But Raven Esports still on the last day. You never know. They might just strike back the lobby so hard that we might just see them at the end of the day in the top 3.
I mean, I really am looking forward to it because all these teams who are on the bottom half, they have got nothing to lose. So all they can do is just try and prioritize the power play points, target some teams, go on to their drop locations, just like what One Blade did even yesterday. They targeted both WSB and their opponents that they always drop in that Pochinki area, Carpadium, right? And the third party did finish both of them off, got some early points.
I mean, keep this thing in mind. Team Tamalas yesterday, they got 2 chicken dinners, one in the map of Erangel and the second on the map of Sandhawk. Team Tamalas were dominating through and through. Carpadium, we thought they might just have a nuclear performance in their hands, but then later on, Team Tamalas, they found the perfect timing with that pounce. They shut down Carpadium, got that chicken dinner in the hands, but even Entity's not that far behind from the competition. Entity's doing really solid.
I mean, the buffer that they received on both the maps of Sandhawk as well as after that, on the map of Miramar, we know their map of Miramar is really good.
Yeah.
And that's what they showcased as well, even yesterday. Even though they could not go in for that podium finish or the first position chicken dinner, they managed to always get some good amount of points on that map itself.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Global Esports, another team that failed to perform properly in the grand finals. And speaking of Global Esports in general, you always, whenever you see this name, the first thing that pops up in your mind is the aggression. But recently, it has been dialed down.
That's perfectly mentioned because we normally see this team is the one who every other team is faring out in the lobby. They're the ones who are trying to avoid the fight with Global Esports. And we clearly saw it during the last few days of the domination week itself with the way how Global Esports were dominating the entire server. But that has diminished, as you mentioned, and this team has been avoiding a lot of those conflicts. But honestly, with the way how Knuckle has stepped up for Aiku's Soul, I think so this is one of the main reasons why this team is looking to be back on that podium.
Knuckle has been the Batman for his team, always bringing his team back from the worst possible case. And Aiku Soul now is there in the top 2, looking so solid. Even Entity's there doing really good. The top 3 is looking packed. But for some reason, I'm having this gut feeling that today's champion is not going to be someone from the top 3. It will be someone who makes a comeback.
I'm really excited to see if in case that happens because again, there are so many teams, so many players and so much potential in all of them that you can't really say solidly that yes, these are the 3 teams that will remain the top 3. Even Godlike is performing really good. Punk has finally brought in that consistency to the team as well. So it could be possible that we might see that team take a big buff. But at the same time, I think so if X-Park brings in a good performance just like what they did yesterday, it could be possible too, but they've got to keep it for consistently 2 or 3 maps.
Top 5 are definitely going to have the biggest pressure on their back, and it's up to them how they defend that pressure, how they live up to that marker that they've set so far. Being in the top 5 is not easy, but being on the first spot will be something that everyone's aiming for. Today's the last day. After 4 games, as I mentioned, the champions will be crowned, and every single team knows every single minute's value, every single moment they spent inside of the Battlegrounds value. It all comes down to this, my friend.
I think so all the top 5 teams, they will try to go in and stick to their own default play style. Whether play it slow, play it slave, they try to prioritize the position first, and then in the last few circles we see their fights. But the teams on the latter half of the board, the ones who are in the 7th, 8th position and anyone below that, will try to prioritize those early fights. They'll be looking forward to try and take those third-party opportunities. And I still feel that the last 2 teams could actually be targeted as well, just like the teams 1Blade and 8-Bit, which they have been targeted multiple times as free points.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the way Entity has been playing recently, Entity, they're really trying to mind their own business. Yes, they are being part of the early game fights too, nothing taken away from that. Especially yesterday, Entity dropped a nuclear performance in one of those matches. If I'm not wrong, they had 17 finishes to end things off.
True. And it was the match in which they lost 2 early players, if I'm not wrong, against the members of Carpadium itself. And this is the map that we are talking about, with the way how Aquanox and Toy played. I think so. There was this 2v4 situation against the members of Godlike itself, where they also still prevailed. Now, these are the few things to keep in mind, because if in case that's going to be the form, and that's when Toy starts to shoot, you better be staying out of his crosshair.
But teams like 8-Bit, Raven Esports, teams that are all the way at the bottom of the overall standings will definitely try to play that spoiler. They will definitely try to make sure that the teams on the top 3 will be facing that brunt as much as possible. There is still the power play action going on. If any other teams do manage to take the best advantage of the power play, either if it's someone from the top 3, they will instantly get a big leap in the overall standings. If it's someone from the latter half of the board, well, that will be a comeback and a half.
Absolutely, and that's going to be important for all of these teams. And we've touched basically every other team, but God's Reign is another one, and a big name that we really saw not perform up to its own potential. Even Reckoning Esports on the other side. These are the two teams I really thought would actually be a bit more aggressive with the way how we saw them in the survival and the domination week. But it seems that all of that has just vanished somehow, and they're kind of trying to play along the styles of the other teams in the lobby, which is not suiting them at all.
Whenever we speak about Reckoning Esports, we always try to glorify them so much because these are the newer boys on the fray. These are the newer boys on the block, and we know they've got so much potential. But unfortunately, in the grand finals, I guess that rookiness really comes into play too, where you do not really have a lot of experience, and when you face off against those experienced teams, there will be those jitters that you're not able to keep up with.
Absolutely, but another team that has been keeping up with those jitters, if not performing really good in all of that scenario, has definitely been Carnival Gaming. The step up has been humongous, and they don't care who they are fighting against. They always leave Hector behind normally and then go for a 3-man push, and this playstyle has been working so very well for them. And I think so even today, if they stick to this exact same default playstyle, they might actually end up stealing the championships from all the other teams. But I really want to look forward at the team Tamilas too, with the way how Mr. IGL is now going to bring his team into action.
Hey, keep this thing in mind. Even Team X Spark can have a solid chance, man. Team X Spark, they're definitely showcasing some signs of life. If you remember yesterday, that game of Wrangle, Team X Spark was dominating the lines. They were taking so many fights, always coming out on top of those fights. Yes, it's a different thing that Team X Spark was always left alive with one single man, but they were still winning those 4-on-4 fights.
Absolutely, and that's what happened. This is the exact same game that we are talking about with the bonkers game that Team X Spark brought in. It seemed that they might actually get that chicken for themselves too, but yeah, things did not go in their exact same manner. And again, Entity as well against the members of Godlike. This is how they wiped out the entirety of Godlike, and look at the reaction of those players. Even Somraj is smiling, man. I never see that dude smile.
As long as you're taking the fights in the power play, you will get so many points that you can easily try and be happy with. 8 points if you manage to wipe out an entire squad, and that's the best possible outcome that you can have. But recently, there's so many teams wanting to go for the third party, and keep this thing in mind. Today is the last day of the tournament. There's definitely going to be a lot of that targeting happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see which team are actually going to target whom, because you've got so many teams who desperately need those points, and so many of them who will try to save themselves whatsoever. It's like having a bounty on your head without actually having the bounty.
I mean, imagine the top 3 will be having the pressure to sustain their spot there in the top 3, while they will also now have the additional pressure of being targeted. And that's something that the top 3 or even the first spot needs to deal with. For CG, they're going to be in that pressure point. And if they do crack under it, well, then it's done for. And remembering the fact that Hector has been IGLing this team for the first time, this tournament means a lot for the man.
Absolutely, and we can see him praying as well, focused on, locked in, and you really need that in this situation to always be ready for whatever's being thrown at you. We have seen big names crumble in that pressure. Even in Season 2, Orangutans were the ones who were leading the chart, who had a good amount of buffer too, yet they could not perform on the third day itself, and they crumbled under all of that pressure. So Hector, he needs to pull some great shenanigans off, because you only have 4 maps.
The young boys who showcase so much potential in the league stage and the playoffs, they're now cracking under that pressure. And this is something that only the experienced players are able to deal with properly. Even Global Esports, another big name, is not able to live up to their expectations in the grand finals. When we thought Global Esports might just be there after the first 2 days in the top 3, Global Esports is nowhere near that.
Absolutely, and that's a big problem, right? Maybe something can fix that, and that's going to be playing on the devices of Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Wow.
This is me 1 day into playing Call of Duty Mobile. This is me 3 days into playing Call of
The playgrounds as well. Unfortunately for Mogo Esports, being taken down with just a 3-man squad. Even that's a tough pill to swallow for the boys. 8-bit towards the bridge. They're camping it out. They're not going to let anyone cross on over to the opposite side. And there's also Team X-Park making that rotation all the way from the bottom side. So for Team X-Park, this rotation's also going to be a lot of value. Because if they do come out on top and make this rotation flawlessly, then IQ Soul will be in a big trouble.
Why am I getting this feeling that this might actually be a bridge circle? I just feel that the BGM gods just want to bring chaos into the lobby, and that's going to bring the maximum number of it.
Let me tell you, man, if CG do not get targeted right here, CG will be the one to win this game, 100%. I don't think so anyone's going to be able to steal it away from them. CG's got such a good compound to play with. Also, the front lines are pretty secured. You talk about the back lines, there's no one there in the back lines. The only teams that are there are in the sidelines. But Team X-Park, they mess up big. They collide against the strong force of IQ Soul, and Team X-Park, they do lose out on one player, but it's vice versa. Equal traits on both the sides. IQ Soul as well, down a man. Joker taken outside of the game, but Team X-Park, Spray God's in the front lines, and IQ Soul, they want to be the hunting pack. They want to hunt down the man in the front, but Spray God's on the move constantly. Knuckle, even he's trying to move on up, try and target Spray God, but he realizes it's time to back away, considering there's a house in the front, and there's definitely going to be someone holding that angle.
Absolutely. They don't want to make the exact same mistake that Godlike did against them. They know how the cards are now being played. And oh my god,
Oh
Roddy!
my god!
Not the perfect position. What an off angle by Spray God. Catches one, and now it's down to a 2v2.
That's what you call a beautiful team coordination, knowing exactly where the opponents are positioned. A nade sails in, and there's Spray God in the front lines to try and strike him down. Spray God gets a little too ahead of himself, gets knocked down in return. Ronnie's still knocked out for IQ Soul. It's still a 2-on-1. They've got the big man advantage, while Team X-Park's last man is trying to create that off angle. Ninja Jod, he gets the confirmation onto Ronnie, making sure that the revival's not going to be there, and now the duel's taken down a 1-on-2. It's not going to be that great one for Ninja Jod, but at least he can try and do a bit more damage against the foes. Knuckle knows exactly where Ninja Jod is too. They know Ninja Jod is isolated inside of the house, and he's constantly taking a lot of damage. And eventually, he will be devoured.
Team X-Park not starting things on a very good note, only having the 8 points in their pocket. Catching a couple of members of Soul, but making sure that the enemy is also hurt. Not a lot that they can do from this point onwards. It's going to be difficult. Disappointments being shown. Players just exchanging a few words, discussing as to where things went wrong. How is KSR7 still alive, and why is he almost in that off-center position, probably playing under the bridge?
I mean, this is a big knockback for Team X-Park.
True.
Makes a lot of sense why these guys are having so many words amongst each other. But they managed to start things off on a really great note. 8 points accumulated in the first game. But considering it is the last day, you need more than 8 points in every single game. But Mogo Esports, they collide against another strong force. This time, they get their revenge. They strike down IQ Soul, a team that was troubling them from the start.
You take one of us, we take two of you. All thanks to the members of X-Park, and now that's again a big blow to the members of IQ Soul themselves, because they can be pushed out of that top 2 position. You've got OG surviving, you've got Team Tamilas as well, Entity, all of them can take them off, and oh my god, what a Rose Rage moment coming in, reckoning up against the members of Global.
Global Esports